Communism is the only way to happiness. For the toiling masses. Xiefeng. November 20th, 2020. Translated by Qinyu and edited by Care. Communism is actually sharing, and the higher the degree of sharing of things, the greater their value. The most effective way to maximize the value of all resources is to share them with everyone, which is communism's essence. People are inherently selfish, so they reject communism intuitively, and they are most afraid of sharing when they have little material wealth. If a person is so poor that they only have a broken bicycle, then they will be unwilling to allow anyone else to ride it. This is human nature. However, when people not only have material wealth, but also power, status, and reputations, they always want to make themselves and their families live more luxuriously than those around them so that others will envy them. This satisfies their vanity, so they are reluctant to share anything with others. Since Marx founded his theory of communism, the communist movement has almost always been promoted violently and in ways which damage the interests of the property-owning class. The imperfection of Marx's communist theory and the blindness of the behavior of communist practitioners has led to the failure of the communist movement. As a result, when people hear about communism, they instinctively hate it and resist it, which is completely understandable. According to historical experience, I can understand why people demonize and resist communism. This should be a lesson learned, and it can even be said that they are doing right because the so-called communist movements throughout history have run completely counter to the real thing. True communism is gentle, soft, and civilized, not coercive, violent, or depriving others of their property. Who has suffered the most in human history? Of course, it has always been the toiling masses, that is, the common people. For thousands of years, their condition has basically not changed much, and they are still the bearers of most of the suffering. I grew up in Asia, spent more than 10 years in Africa, lived in North America for nearly 4 years, and I have also spent a few months with primitive tribes in Oceania. I felt and experienced deeply the pain and troubles of the commoners everywhere I went. In order to relieve the suffering and troubles of the toiling masses, I have immersed myself in the Bible, Buddhist scriptures, the Quran, the Tao Te Ching, and I have also concentrated on Western spiritual practices and Eastern Osho. I have always paid attention to the global climate and ecological changes, focusing on changes in global political ecology. What I want to tell mankind is that communism is the only bright way out for the common masses. So, what is communism? I have explained some of its theories, but no theories can reveal the essential characteristics of things, let alone analyze all the interpretations and extensions of them. It is only by creating real objects that people can observe intuitively and deeply that they will fully understand them. Therefore, Chanyuan Celestials and I created the purely communistic new oasis for life, formerly the second home. So if you want to know and understand what communism is, you can visit and experience the new oasis for life created by Life Chanyuan for yourselves. Many people equate communism with utopia, and there is nothing wrong with this understanding because utopia is the embryonic form of communism, but most of them throughout history have failed. In order to figure out the reasons for their failures, I have carefully analyzed some historical ones, especially the New Harmonious Village, founded by the utopian socialist practitioner, Owen in the United States. I wrote an article to analyze the reasons for its failure in which I opined that its core problem and the reason for its failure was that its utopian leaders did not have clear understandings and blueprints in their minds. They only relied on their passion and were crossing the river by feeling for the stones. So, when encountering the rush of wind, waves, and whirlpools, they could only drown in their rivers. In order to distinguish between the theories and practical activities of communism in history, I call the new oasis for life created by Life Chanyuan Xiefeng-style communism. This communism can resolve territorial disputes between countries and excessive consumption of natural resources, solve the corruption problem of government officials, avoid young Galen-style tragedies, reduce criminal activities by 3/4, enable people to live and work in peace, eliminate war, turmoil, refugees, and hunger, reduce suicide rates by more than half, and can give 98% of the people happy, joyful, free, and blessed lives. Who are these toiling masses? The term refers to those who have suffered their entire lives for food, clothing, housing, transportation, life, old age, sickness, and death. Those who have been struggling for a lifetime and are still struggling. Those who have suffered and have been bullied, troubled, and tortured all their lives. Those who have been looking forward to getting rich every year, while year after year still wearing torn clothes. Those who lack security but see no hope. And those who hate government officials, but on the surface have to show smiles on their faces and be deferential and sycophant to the officials. In short, everyone who wants to live a good life with their hands and diligence are the toiling masses. The cruel reality is that they are people who want to live better lives by hard work, yet their hands cannot rid themselves of troubles, pains, anxiety, sorrow, and even fear throughout their entire lives. This is what happened thousands of years ago. It is the same today, and it will remain this way for thousands of years to come unless we change our traditional production and life mode completely and enter the Xiefeng-style communist society. Otherwise, they will only dream eternally of having better lives. Moral education is always fragile and vulnerable. Christian moral education, Buddhist moral education, Islamic moral education, Confucian moral education, and the moral education of all kinds of sages have been easily destroyed by the face of reality. Look no further than today's China. All Communist Party officials have been raised on Mao Zedong's ideological and moral education, but in the face of money and interests, Mao's thoughts have been shelved. The level of corruption is staggering. Millions of yuan, even tens of millions are not enough. They embezzled hundreds of millions, billions, or even tens of billions. These servants of the people never cared about the lives of all the young Galens? Who cares about the lives of the toiling masses? Very few. Did decades of moral education work? Not at all. Let us look at the recent U.S. presidential election. Before the result of the election had even been settled, the mainstream media in the United States rushed to declare Joe Biden as the president, followed by the heads of Western democracies such as Britain, France, Germany, Israel, and other similar countries which sent congratulatory letters to Biden for his election victory. Even the president of Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen, who is known as a Democrat, hurriedly sent congratulatory messages to Biden. No matter who is elected president, respecting the facts and listening to the voices and wishes of the people is the basis and bottom line of morality. The mainstream media's announcements and the congratulations of foreign before the facts had emerged and the votes had been counted violates the basic bottom line of morality and does not conform to legal procedures. What should be emphasized here is that most people in Western society have been educated in Christian morality, but where is the morality of the mainstream media? Where is the morality of those national leaders? Democratic countries are like this, but moral education in non-democratic countries is not even worth considering. The facts tell us that moral education is not enough to allow the toiling masses to live and work in peace and contentment because all spiritual chicken soup is an anesthetic. The current rampant Buddhist preaching is even more of an anesthetic, and the preaching to return to traditional Chinese culture is tantamount to advocating for men to wear braids and long mandarin jackets and women to bind their feet. That mysterious and spooky preaching is a portion of poison. Those who care about the welfare of the toiling masses should seek and establish programs which fundamentally guarantee happy lives for them. It might be very good to say that we should put power in the cage of the system, such that government officials dare not, cannot, and would not have access to corrupt practices, but unfortunately, it is the system itself that is the best soil for officials to grow corrupt, so the system will be unable to restrain and stop it because it is its own hotbed of corruption. I ask, can this system shut down power? Can it shield officials from corruption? Of course not. There have been many changes of dynasties throughout Chinese history, but what were the results? The herbal soups changed, but the medicines did not. Individuals changed, but the system did not. The obvious result is that the toiling masses are still the toiling masses, and their toiling nature and destiny have been fundamentally unchanged. If you do not change the traditional production and life mode, then it is of no use to change the ones in charge. It is useless even if you adopt a separation of powers, such as in the United States if the president is Old Wang. The judiciary is run by his brother-in-law, The legislative power is under the control of his third aunt, and the media are controlled by his best friends. Toiling masses, use your heads. Would you have free and happy lives? Xiefeng-style communism is the only way to happiness for the toiling masses. The new oasis for life production and life mode, created by Life Genuine, is a paradise for everyone. Many poor people among the working people have fluky minds, and they always think that they can squeeze into the upper class and live the life of the best as they sharpen their heads. Yes, they have that chance. There have always been 1 or 2 people out of 10,000 who have achieved this wish, but the probability of success is much too low, and it is a path that very few common workers will ever take. There are also some commoners who think that since they have million yuan houses and cars worth several 100,000 yuan, that they no longer belong to that low level. In fact, they are self-anesthetized and daydreaming. If they cannot maintain control for 3 days, then their car is just a pile of scrap iron. If they do not have food for 3 days, their million yuan house is just a coat. If there is a major illness or disaster, their property and vehicles will not save them. There are even some poor toiling masses who think that since they have become civil servants with iron rice bowls, secure jobs, they feel that their futures are secure, but in fact that is just a temporary comfort for themselves, and when they get old, they will learn the feelings of life, the sour, sweet, bitter, hot, and salty taste of life. In fact, Xiefeng-style communism is not only the road to happiness for the toiling masses, but also for capitalists and government officials, and the road for the cultivators to become celestials and Buddhas. The reason for this cannot be fully explained in a single article. If you have any doubts, please ask those who have lived and experienced Xiefeng-style communism. They can answer you. Remember this. Communism is the only way to happiness for the toiling masses and the only way out for mankind.